Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. You are listening to a rebroadcast of a previously recorded show.
So I want to welcome the program. It's very interesting. He has a Tampa connection. So I want to welcome the program author, Jeff Klinkenberg, and you're the author of Alligator in B Flat, a collection of essays on Florida. Jeff, thanks for coming by.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here, and I'm happy to be talking to you guys. And it's kind of fun to be down in Miami because that's where I grew up, and that's where I, started visiting the Everglades and the Keys when I was a small boy, and kind of got Florida in my blood.
Well, absolutely, Jeff, and I think that the thing about it is when you go to this Miami Book Fair, if you grew up in Miami and you're a writer, you know about this fair. Definitely.
Yes, I think it's the best known in the country, really. And it's always exciting to be here.
I think it's number one, and I'm a little biased about that, especially with I have good friends out in the L.A. area. I interview a lot of best-selling L.A. authors as well, and never have gotten to cover any big fairs in the L.A. area. So, and I got the experience at the first year, and it was just absolutely amazing. So let's go into specifically why write Alligator in B Flat. Is it because of your writing as a columnist that you decided that you wanted to put this together?
I write a column for the Tampa Bay Times, which is the largest newspaper south of Washington, D.C. And the column is called Real Florida. And it's sort of, if you remember Charles Kuralt, who used to work for CBS, and he did this weekly feature was called On the Road. And he traveled all over the country and broadcast these little human interest stories. And I sort of do that for Florida. I travel from Pensacola to Key West, and I write about the things that make Florida, Florida. And those include natural Florida, Florida history, Florida art, music, food, and some very interesting people. And I have to say, it's quite the gig. It's pretty great. I've been doing this for a long time. The only thing that would make it more perfect is if I didn't have to write the stories. If I could just travel and meet all these people and go to the beautiful places and, of course, eat all the fried chicken and oysters.
Sounds like
editors, they expect me to write a story every once in a while. So I do that, and then probably every 3 or 4 years I collect some of my best stories and kind of tweak them into essays, making them a little bit more personal, and then they end up in book form. And then I get out there and talk about it, and I make millions of dollars after that. No, I'm kidding. But I have lots of fun. I do go to the book festivals and meet lots of interesting people and see some of my old some other authors who sadly do make millions of dollars. But anyway,
Jeff, sounds like you have the best job in the world. You get to have fun, you get to write about it, and you get to share it and get paid for it. So, I mean, that sounds like the best job in the world.
It really is a good gig. And the thing that makes Florida so interesting to writers is the amazing diversity, not only of animals and people, but just things that can be that you can experience if you travel around Florida and if you look for it. And in 2013, it's different than it was in 1951 when I moved to Florida. But interestingly, I mean, a lot of things are actually better than they were. Some things aren't, but when I was a kid growing up in Miami, and my dad loved to go into the glades, we never saw alligators. They were rare. They had virtually been wiped out by hunting, legal and illegal. And of course, now we have a couple of million there in your swimming pool. We didn't know crocodiles existed. Now there's 2,500 here in southeast Florida, but we're finding them in Tampa Bay now. They're reclaiming their native range. Nobody knew there were Florida panthers still in existence in the 50s. And while there's still many challenges facing them, the population is relatively robust to a point where male panthers are heading up through the state into Georgia. So and there's been a population explosion of bears. So Florida is a really interesting place. When I grew up, when I was a kid here, I mean, there were 2 million people. Now there's 19 million people. So there's lots of pressure on natural Florida. But and that's what a lot of writers write about. We write about that place where old Florida kind of bumps up into New Florida. And New Florida is very powerful, and it pushes really hard. But, then we have a hurricane, or there's some kind of awful, alligator attacks somebody, and then you see natural Florida kind of rearing its head and saying, hey, we're still here. So, I tell my wife, who's from New York, I say, we can get mugged in Manhattan, but you're not going to be devoured by a wild beast, which could happen here. And I'm downtown Miami, looking at this beautiful campus. Just think of all the high culture that's here, from theater to art to South Beach is across the bay. I ate a Joe's Stone Crab yesterday. Yet, I could go a couple miles or less west toward the Everglades, and if I went swimming at the wrong time, the wrong place,
you could be lunch.
I ate it. So It does make Florida an interesting place. It's not like anywhere else, really. And of course, now there's this narrative, of weird Florida, which is really fun. And I kind of enjoy it too. Though, if you kind of look around, I mean, if you go, say, to the Huntington Post has this great site called Weird Florida, and I'll look at it and I'll kind of laugh. And then one day someone said, why don't you write into Huntington Post Weird Alaska? So I did that, and it turned out they have a weird site for every state. And I realized, like, some of the stories that we get excited about, some of the weird stories that we hear about in Florida, if you go to other states, they have very similar stories. So people in every state like to think that they're the weird one. But,
so what you're saying is there's weirdos everywhere?
Yes, thank God. But what makes Florida interesting is we do have these stories that are both weird, but they're unique to Florida. And just a couple weeks ago, and this is the kind of Florida story I like, that excites me. The flesh-eating zombies doesn't excite me, because I know, if you go to Weird Maine, you might see the same thing. But this was the story I'm going to tell you is a great weird Florida story. So there's this guy, and this was down, I think, over in Naples area. He's driving down the street, and he sees a snapping turtle out in the road, and he thinks, "Oh my God, this snapping turtle is going to get hit by a car and killed." So he stops. He's the Good Samaritan, and he walks out there and he gets the snapping turtle. And I mean, snapping turtles are scary. Their heads are long. They can come back and bite you, but he avoided that. So he carries it to the side of the road. He's letting it go, and he feels something. He feels this pain on his ankle, and he looks down, and he's just been bit by a rattlesnake. So, that's such a Florida story.
Yep.
Bad luck. We had a story up in the Tampa Bay area a couple years ago where there's a carjacking, and so the police are chasing the carjacker, and he pulls off the road, jumps out of the car, climbs a fence, and has to swim across a pond. And of course, when he does, he was attacked by an alligator. He survived it, but it ended his bad night. I'll put it that way.
Exactly.
So not only was he arrested, but he was bitten by an alligator. So I like those kinds of stories rather than the kind of generic, weird crime that happens anyplace else.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's something that you see the stories, you picture all of what Florida is about, and you find the interesting things, and you say, "Hey, I'm going to write about this," and this is what makes it interesting. And so many people wish they could live in Florida, Jeff. and especially your column being picked up a lot of places. They're like, I wish I could be in Florida. This is just not gonna. It is what it is, and the stories and people that come here are all walks of life, aren't they, Jeff?
Yes, it is the melting pot here, and for as long as I can remember, and actually you could probably go back to 1513 with Ponce de Leon coming to Florida to make a new start. This has always been the place where people come to make a new start, and that was certainly true of my parents in 1951, and it still happens. The climate is pretty good most of the year, and people don't want to shovel snow. They don't want to pay an income tax, a state income tax, so they end up here. And some of them become Floridians. Some of them never like it. They never leave the air conditioning. And when they die, they're shipped back to Cincinnati for burial. But some people, they do get it in their blood, and the animals, the plants, the birds, and just these unusual things, just kind of become part of who they are. And that's happened to me, and of course I write about a lot of those people. And let me just tell you about the essay Alligator in B Flat, which is the title essay in my new book, and everybody wants to know about that. What was that about? And in 2007, I was listening to National Public Radio one morning, and there was a story, a science story about black holes in outer space. And astronomers had found out that these black holes, the most powerful thing in the universe, were emitting this low B-flat tone, something that the human ear could never pick up, but these instruments did. And this reporter mentioned in passing that in 1942, the Museum of Natural History in New York, someone had discovered by accident that male alligators responded to low B-flat by going into territorial behavior, mating behavior. And I heard that and I thought, I could have some fun with this. I wonder if I could make this work. So I made this call one day. Guy answers the phone. I said, is this Bill Mickelson? He says, yes. And I said, Bill, I know you're the principal tuba player for the Florida Orchestra in Tampa. Yes. I said, I know you have a master's degree from Yale. Yes. I said, well, how would you like to go to this Florida tourist attraction called Gatorland and play your tuba for the alligators? And he said, yeah! It was like the greatest thing he'd ever heard. So we did that, and we tried it. We tried to see if we could get alligators, the males anyway, to go into that mating bellow. And it took us a while to figure out, but then we made it happen, and it was astonishing. This 10-acre park, you could hear them going all over the place, and it's loud. It's like T-Rex when they start doing that. And so that's the title essay. And if people were to Google my name and alligators in B flat, they would also get the video that we shot with that day, and people can actually see it as well as read about it.
All right, well, it's fantastic, Jeff, you came by, and I hope that you and Eric get an opportunity to connect with each other, especially being in the same area, St. Pete. So it's always a coincidence how these things work out. So, Jeff, where can we find information on you, purchase your book, and learn more about you?
Well, the book is, you can find the book where all fine books are sold, bookstores, especially in Florida, but also online through the usual suspects, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc.
All right, well, fantastic. Best of luck to you, Jeff, and enjoy the rest of the fair.
Thank you, and I'm going to give you back to the astonishing Renee.
Renee.
Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own and shall not be construed in any way as advice from Life Improvement Radio. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our website. Personal perspectives expressed by the producers, writers, or editors will always be presented as such. Any rebroadcast or retransmission without the expressed written consent of Life Improvement Radio is strictly prohibited. Thanks for listening.